And this is Jason Tucker, and this is WPwatercooler episode number 121. Today we're going to be talking about maintenance tools for your WordPress site. Let's go around the room here real quick and get everyone introduced. We go in alphabetic order, and unfortunately Chris Lima isn't here. He's usually the first one, so I guess we'll have to settle with George.
Hi everyone, I'm George Stefanis. I am the team lead for the Jetpack Pit crew at Automattic, erstwhile tweeter, and I get bored very easily, so I'm moving on.
Nice. Rami, what's up? Tell us about yourself.
I'm Rami. I'm a developer at Maintainn, a WordPress support and maintenance company.
Awesome. What about you, Russ?
Hey, what's up? I'm Russ. I have GeekStreet, another support maintenance company, and I build stuff in WordPress.
Sweet. Suzette, what about you?
Hello everybody, I'm Suzette Franck, and I am a designer, front-end developer over at WebDevStudios.
Very cool. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me, Jason Tucker, on Twitter, and I blog about WordPress audio-video stuff over at WPmedia.pro. Wow, that is the shortest intro ever because we have the shortest and smallest number of people on the show.
Hey, I'm 6'2", I'll have you know.
Same here, 6'2" and a half. So let's talk a little bit about this WordPress thing and about supporting it and doing maintenance with it. You know, it looks like two of you guys run companies that do maintenance type work, right?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
work there. I don't run the company.
Work there, right? Okay. So, you know, Rami, you want to tell us a little bit about yours, and then we'll let Russ explain his.
Sure. Maintainn handles a pretty wide variety of WordPress sites, everything from enterprise down to casual bloggers, giant multi-site networks, various commerce configurations, and from there it's for the typical employee a pretty even split between custom development and high volume support and maintenance. Things from help my site is hacked to I need to customize some facet of a plugin and everything in between.
Very cool. How long have you guys been doing that?
About 2 years now, just under.
Very cool. Very cool. What about you, Russ?
It's actually kind of funny. Shane Sanderson, who does Maintainn, he and I kind of rolled out our platforms together. As you probably know, John Hawkins, we started this WordPress meetup group. Well, John did, and I kind of joined in. And I noticed people needed help. And the thing with WordPress groups is, like, there's people that help, but then there's people that need a specific answer. So I started this kind of support platform. And it started off with just a gravity form, and you know it was $1, and I'll answer your question. And then it kind of grew into $2, $3, and now it's full blown. It's all 100% WordPress. Like, we don't use Zendesk or we don't use anything like that. Everything we built is 100% WordPress. And I feel like that helps us connect to people who are using WordPress.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow, you're using everything with WordPress, huh?
Everything we do here is WordPress. If I can't do it in WordPress, I don't do it.
That's hardcore, man.
So, George, when's that going to get rolled in the Jetpack?
Shh, don't tell him.
No, you did not.
I mean, there's some fantastic support tools. What we have rolled in recently is Jetpack Manage, which is a way of centralizing the dashboard, and we're extending an open API so third-party apps could just decide to extend it, and I don't know if Manage WP or Infinite WP or any of them wanted to, they could say, here, log in with your WordPress.com account, and then you could just use the Jetpack Manage as a client, or they could use that as a way of then on the client's behalf installing their own plugin through it. So we're getting some last security and privacy bugs ironed out before we actually open that up, but all the endpoints are there, everything's publicly auditable, and we're hoping to really help build and drive the ecosystem forward on that before hopefully getting it rolled into the WordPress.org JSON REST API that's currently in development.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's cool, because that actually helps both of these guys out in the long run, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there have been so many different varied implementations on it that it makes sense for there to be a JSON REST API endpoints that could be called for installing plugins, updating things. The problem is, up to this point, we've only had XML RPC in core, and that's meant as a publishing platform. Extending that to like manage infrastructure is something it was never meant or intended to do. So now that there's actually so now that there's actually progress in core of building a full proper API to handle everything, I would love to see basically API first development moving and happening in core. So anything you can do in WP admin could be done via an API call just as easily, and that's going to then let you sever the actual WP admin code. So who knows, the next admin for WordPress could just be entirely API driven, just like a mobile app or just like what have you. It's going to need some reimagining of how some legacy plugins interact, especially if there's going to be any standardization. But yeah, it's where I'm really excited to see WordPress moving to in the next 3-5 years, and I've completely derailed our topic for the day, so I'm sorry for turning us back.
That's all right. That's all right.
No, that's good. I wanted to know about that. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a very good
George, what you just described. George, what you just described, I feel like you just described, you know, like a car that has wood sticking out the windows? Like, I feel like that's what you just described. Like, it's a car, not meant to be used as a truck. That's what XML RPC is. I feel like that's what you just described.
I mean, the RP, I forget what the C stands for, but the RP in XML RPC stands for remote. Oh, it's remote procedure call. Never mind. I thought it was remote thing. But yeah, I mean, the initial spec was basically here's how you have XML RPC, and that's a consistent thing across all sorts of platforms. I think Drupal supports it. I think Joomla may have. Blogger did. It was basically these common set of calls that we've added onto in WordPress since then. But I mean, if an application is just going to use the common calls, it could instantly work with all these different blogging platforms. And it's great and all, but I mean, let's face it, formatting everything in XML and then including your password in plain text in every...
You're going to give me a flashback. Stop.
Sorry. I don't mean to trigger Rami's PTSD, so moving on.
So now that we've kind of gave a pretty good idea of like what technologies are being used on the back end in order to to do this, or what will be going forward pretty soon here. Like, what stuff can we use now? Like, what are the things that we can use now as both as like normal users that would want to do maintenance work on their site, and then if they don't want to do that themselves, what could they, who could they pay? How could they pay them? And what type of, interfaces or software are they going to use in order to do it? So, like, what is there now that people can use? I mean, there's managed WP. There's that type of thing. There's infinite WP that's out there. There's
if you just want set it and forget it, there's a plugin called Update Control that you can say all my things, update them automatically and leave me alone.
What is that called? That's awesome. I need that.
Update Control. It also lets you turn off auto update for point releases.
That's Mark's
never recommend.
plugin, right?
No, I started it and Chip took it over.
Chip. Okay.
But I would never recommend someone turn off point releases. But if you need to for some reason or other, that'll let you do it. But it's basically more set it and forget it. I wouldn't recommend folks set everything to automatically update immediately, because I mean, if a point release gets out on one of your plugins, just going to kill your site, you could not be having a fun time. I'm very much like to see more development in core that will basically something built out that will update a plugin, but still save the old version of it in a temp directory and just like run a test with a loopback connection. If the site's bricked, then it undoes it, and the initial process just replaces the initial files, so an update didn't brick your site. But that's
cool.
I'm rambling again. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So we have something like that. What is there? There's other tools that are out there that do like database maintenance and optimization.
Yeah, WP Optimize is one of them. That I think it doesn't work with every host though.
It does not.
It does not. It does not
It's a good
work with
plugin.
every host. But if it works, it's great because it allows you to optimize your database tables without going into PHP and MyAdmin.
I think one of the most important types of maintenance are preventive maintenance. So the fantastic variety of backup and security and DNS monitoring plugins. There is zero excuse as if you're not backing up your WordPress site, you just don't deserve to have a website at all. You can do free options and you can do any variety of paid stuff. So there's a lot of great solutions out there.
Yeah, like Securi has something like that. I was looking at one of their most recent offering where they'll actually go and update all of your plugins in place and revert back to the one that's from the repository, so that way you'll have the most freshest version of that file, and it hasn't been something that's been tampered with or anything like that, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I know WordFence does have also monitoring that will monitor DNS as well as changes to core files or plugins. I think that might be a pro feature. Not quite sure. That's pretty awesome.
It's something I know I've talked with Chris Wegman about in iTheme Security, and I believe last time I spoke with him, I think he had said he was looking into adding that in. I'm not sure if that's actually happened yet. But just something that can basically look at your core directories, give you an automatic heads up. Is there a file there that shouldn't be? Do the file hashes match what should be? Now, if an exploit is getting really crafty, they could just rewrite the plugin so it's always going to return a false positive, but that's what you get when you're not doing pure file system scanning.
Yeah. So, what now that we've kind of gone through a few of these things, like, what are you guys doing, as the professionals that do this type of work? Like, is there tools that you guys are using in-house that you built yourself, or is there stuff that you're kind of using that's off the shelf?
For the most part, like when a client is using something like, let's say, Gravity Forms, we'll go ahead and test it across like some local dev stuff, and if it works there, I'm pretty confident that it will still work on their sites. But it's also nice to pull down kind of a backup of their site and install it there and just double check. But for the most part, like, there's plugins that we trust that we'll just go ahead and update, but then there's other things that, like, it only has 2,000 reviews or it only has like 200 downloads. That one will go and like examine way more, and we'll always keep a backup of of the site just to hold, just in case, especially with like Bootstrap plugins, because you have someone who's using like a Bootstrap plugin that's running 2.0, and then like in 3.0 the naming changed, so it's like we got to go and test that kind of stuff, and having a backup of that just helps,
For us, aside from consistent restore points and error logs, once you get beyond the preventive maintenance stuff, we have a few things that, given certain symptoms and whatever the issue happens to be, a bit of custom solutions and automated tests to help narrow things down quicker than a person could. One really great, our internal plugins are not public, but one really excellent one made by Norcross is the system snapshot report that you can hand off to your customer or client and say, okay, install and activate this plugin and just send me whatever it says. And it helps you narrow things down.
Oh, that is cool. I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, what kind of information does it actually give you?
All of the plugins installed in the active states, whether or not multi-site is active, how many subsites there are, variety of other data, how many comments, how many posts, how many spam comments, stuff like that.
Nice.
That's really cool. Even for like the freelance person that's working on, maybe they're bringing on a new client or something, they can run that just to kind of look at it and get a general idea of what they're working with before they actually dive in and start working.
Yeah.
Now, out of curiosity, Russell was mentioning that pulling down a local copy of client sites, do you run them locally through like Vagrant or the like, or is this more just like an archival copy? And the archival copies that you pull down, are you running them through any sort of version control so you can step back through them in history, or is it more of just this is what the current version happens to be?
So when we bring somebody and once they get like above a regular support plan, they get some kind of economy or expert or something like that, we'll actually pull down what they have and store it in a repo, and we'll test based on that. And then we're doing SVN to pull down and keeping that current just to test based on that. But everything we do is local here, that's on a computer not connected to an internet when we test that, just so we don't possibly give out information that we shouldn't, you know? So we pull it down via SVN, run backups, and then we'll install what we need to, and if it's good, we'll push it all back up. And that's one of the good things about WP Engine is using SVN to do all that.
Our process is somewhat analogous, but it does depend on the use case. If I log into a site and some plugin is doing some disgusting monstrosity with jQuery that really shouldn't be there, you know, I'll just patch the JavaScript file or make a tiny little helper plugin or something. In that case, you know, creating a new branch on the repo and pushing something up and stuff like that will come later as a sort of record. The priority is always getting their site in good working order as soon as possible.
I see. What about you, Suzette? You know, you've done the independent freelance stuff. You went from that to now working at WebDev. You know, what did you use in the past, and what was some of the stuff that that you were kind of showing your customers to use?
I was using, we would do all the maintenance and updates of everything, and it was kind of like a way for us to kind of see that everything was okay, so we just did everything manually. We had like, usually we would block out like, okay, we're going to do this set of customers this week, but then we would go through like all their plugins, make sure they were current, and that the data was showing on the website like it was supposed to. So it was kind of a manual. Then I discovered Infinite WP, which I used, but I understand that there was some security vulnerabilities with that last, like, a few weeks ago, the Infinite WP. And then we would also use Managed WP, but that is a more premium.
Right.
So we would have our more paying customers on that, on Managed WP, because I thought the interface was a lot better than Infinite WP.
Yeah, it seems like I use kind of the same tactic that that Russell's doing with WP Engine. I use our staging site as kind of a way of testing out my site beforehand and making sure that the site's working good as I start going through and updating plugins, or if I'm doing any maintenance on it, I'll test that in in a staging environment first, and then go from there.
Time saver.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and any web host that provides some type of staging environment I think that's probably something I would really look at before I would sign up for them.
I completely love WP Engine staging just because like literally it's one click and everything gets moved over, and it's like, all right, fresh copy, ready to roll, import, export, do whatever, and you know what? If I F it up too bad, just another copy, and it's done in like 5 minutes, and I'm good to go again. Like I love that part of WP Engine.
And you can also roll back to a particular version if you needed to, which is kind of like what Rami was talking about. But the other thing you can do with it that I thought was pretty neat is that you could then take that and push it to production if you wanted to. So if you got everything working the way you wanted to, but you didn't want to push out, say, WP Meta, or the post meta or the posts themselves, you can do everything else but those. So
right.
that type of stuff's kind of a cool way of going about it.
We have a client site, and they're using Gravity Forms to update posts, and so like to do that we had to come up with like a clever way to embed all those and stuff, and the actual dude deleted the template. And I was like, thank God we made like a staging site. I could just pull everything down, and like we were good to go, But like most people don't have that luxury. They just go in and start deleting stuff, or they add a period where they shouldn't. And it's like, what'd you do? And like that's literally the most tedious part of my job, is trying to like understand what my client did to mess things up.
Yep.
Like, I love clients to death, and I love tutorials. I love to read. I love to understand. My whole thing with tutorials is I wish they would put a WordPress version number with the tutorial. Like, hey, when I wrote this, we were on 3.2. You know what I
It
mean?
does
That
make a
way,
big difference. Yeah.
it would be way cool. You know, I mean, you should be able to read the date and see it was written in 2006 and be like, maybe I shouldn't use this. But to somebody who just has a regular blog, they'll just copy and paste and have no idea what it does, you know?
Yeah,
And then
let me go in PHP my admin and paste this SQL query in here and see what happens.
it's like, they said I should delete my theme. Is that a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. You know, it's horrible.
So
You know,
what should our novice listeners do here? You know, we get a lot of, you know, it's a huge variety of people. We get people that are just like us that, you know, have been doing this stuff for ages. We have people that are brand spanking new. Like, what are the brand spanking new people? What should they be looking at?
Hello, user. Yes, speaking directly to you. In cyberspace, back up your WordPress site right now. As soon as this is over, back up your site if you're not doing it.
Right now, not when it's over. Right
With
now.
an off-site backup. So I don't care if it's emailed to you, if I don't care if it's loaded up to your Dropbox. If your backup is sitting in a folder of your site,
It's not backup.
doesn't really help you.
It doesn't. Yeah, people don't understand that. It's like putting your fire insurance documents like inside of your burning house. If you have a backup there and it's on your server and it blows up, then you're just SOL right there.
or you make a backup but you don't pay your bill and then they destroy everything. Your backup's gone. You know, like, it doesn't work that way.
It's totally true. It's totally true.
9 out of 10 support problems that come to the door are like, oh, you just didn't pay your bill. That's why your site's down. You know, like, a lot of people don't have reoccurring payments and stuff. That's mostly our day. It's just like, hey, go pay your GoDaddy bill, and you know you'll be good.
So I'm gonna play the role of the noob. So, like, what plugin should I be using then to make my backup?
I use VaultPress, and I love VaultPress because it's not only is it's like set it and forget it, but when you have to restore your site, it's a one-click restore, and it has like a calendar interface, so you can just restore back to that day. So it's really easy, and I haven't had any problems with that. And I use that. It's only like $5 a month, I think, to install VaultPress for backups on a site. So there's no reason not to have that. Or at least, I mean, there are free. Also, there's backup to Dropbox. That's another one that's really good, and it's a free one. And there's backup WP is another one that's good. But just some kind of backup. But if you're lucky enough to have WP Engine, like before you install a plugin, it automatically creates a backup for you if you let it. It'll prompt you.
What I really like about it is when you go install a plugin, it says, would you like to make a backup? And you can either say, nah, I'm cool, or yes, please do it, stupid. Like, it's really that simple.
Yeah, that's really easy. And something else that a lot of new people don't know about is when you have a WordPress site and you're testing out like all these different plugins and themes, it's good to get rid of those if you're not going to be using them anymore. So a lot of people, because there is a potential for someone to get into your site by having an old plugin, even if it's not activated, and that's like a hard thing for newbies to get. Like, don't leave that software on your site unless you're going to be using it, because it could leave you open to vulnerabilities, like if it has Tim Thumb, or there's other things as well. But just clean up and make sure that you don't have a lot of extra themes and plugins that aren't being used.
And again, having that preventive maintenance. Popular analogy is a car. You know, you make sure there's oil in it, you make sure there's gas in it, make sure the doors open, make sure there's an engine that will run so you can travel. There's I think where a lot of the more baseline issues occur with WordPress sites is a general misunderstanding of what a lot of things are like plugin and theme marketplaces. There's an inherent to us, a pretty bizarre level of consumer trust that goes on. Well, it says it'll do the thing. I bought this theme. It says Soliloquy slider and Gravity Forms is embedded in the theme. I don't have to buy those plugins. What's the problem there? Or just something that's straight up malicious that they're buying from some random site.
Well,
so preventive maintenance.
To second that is, even when you have a backup plugin, if you're not using it, you should disable it and like uninstall it, because anything that can connect to your database and could potentially get hacked is just another way to lose information. That's why having something like WP Engine prevents having a plugin to backup, and we don't have to worry about that security risk.
And WP Engine is not the only company that does that. I mean, there's tons of them too. It's just that's the one that Russ and I use.
A very basic, important reminder for everyone is that while we're talking about backups, don't think that just because you have an FTP download of your site that your site is backed up. It's not. That is only half of your site. You need a database backup, which is what the plugins have access to and can do for you. I've known far too many people to say, well, here's my site. It's missing the database. That's all your posts. That's what your plugins are configured as, which ones are turned on, what's your active theme, what color did you set your background to be. That's all gone if you ignore your database.
Yeah, that is something that a lot of new beginners have a hard time understanding, that there is a database that needs to be backed up, but also the files. Like, there's two components to it. And so if you're used to working with just flat, like, HTML files, and then you go to WordPress, and you have this whole database component that you don't know what to do with, it needs to be backed up, and there is software that will do that for you. So.
One of the biggest things I can't stress enough is when you import something, let it run and let it do its job, because we've had people they'll just export all their posts, pages, and menus, and they'll import that in like 5 times, and then they have 5 copies of their menu, and it's just horrible. And that's the biggest thing is when you make a backup, it could potentially be huge. You have to let it run.
Yeah,
that's right.
Especially when they have a whole bunch of revisions or some weird posts or something like that are in there and they didn't realize, or 30,000 comments, and they're like, "Why is this so big?"
Yeah, and folks will get very bent out of shape.
You have 5,000.
So many folks will get very over-optimizing a site is something you need to watch out for. Some folks recommend that you should never keep more than 2 revisions on a given post because that's eating up database space. Well, it's going to be raw in your database, but that's not really going to slow down your site because that just gets ignored on all the database queries. So there's not really much of a cost to have it there, but if something goes wrong, having those extra 5 revisions will probably save your rear end in a pinch. So don't be so concerned about performance over small wins that you wind up shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, that's true, because actually on my SuzetteFranck.com site where I do most of my blogging, I put a draft post. I disabled post revisions and autosave, and I lost a post because I thought I was doing some optimization and I over-optimized it, and that's what happened. So then I lost a post that way, so it was silly.
Something that WP Engine does is they don't turn on revisions for you. You actually have to contact them, and then they'll only let you go up to 3 revisions just to kind of handle that. And that's something that we just learned recently. I didn't know that they won't let you do revisions. You have to actually go and activate it through config.
Interesting. Well, that about wraps it up for today. Thank you all for being on the show today. Make sure you go to our website at WPwatercooler.com and click on the links there. If you're looking for links over to any of the folks that have been on the show, those links will be on there. If you want to hit them up on social media, do that as well. Any comments, questions, anything like that, leave a comment down at the bottom down here. And then if you are watching this on YouTube or something like that, click the little like button or little thumbs up button or something like that. Thank you all for being on the show. You have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.